Welcome back to another episode. This is episode 6 of Mindset Matters, a mental health series presented by WellSpan Health. Daryl Henry with you from inside our WOYK studios and joined across the screen by Dr. Michael Diller, licensed psychologist, head of the Employee Assistance Program at WellSpan Health as well. Mike, great to be back with you again for episode 6. We're flying, but we're hopefully breaking down some barriers and stigmas on every episode here.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, one conversation at a time, and I love it. Episode 6, here we are. It's kind of like inning 6 of the game of baseball here. So right, just great to be back, and I know we're gonna, do another great job here with another conversation on talking about just kind of breaking down stigma and just the importance of good mental health. So look forward to it. Glad to be back.
You know, inning 6 is often where managers start to earn their money. Although maybe, nowadays the starting pitchers go shorter, but inning 6 is usually when a lot of the stuff starts churning, and we have some great stuff here over these next 4 episodes.
Yeah. Look forward to it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, today, to pick it up where we left off, you and I have managed to stretch out our 9 to know segment over the course of parts of 3 episodes now, but we will finish it with the final 2 points today, which I think are extremely important. And Mike, just briefly, we'll put this up on the screen again. But again, if anybody just jumped into our conversation here for the first time tonight, give us a little synopsis again of where the 9 to know came from for you and why that's so important.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Daryl. Yeah, for those that haven't been with us here for the entire time, maybe their first time joining us here, appreciate you joining us, first of all. But this 9 to know was really about just from the beginning of the pandemic. What are some of the just kind of key ways that we can just help take care of ourselves during these times where it's just so uncertain, so many changes, so many losses that have happened in different ways, each to our own story, unique to our own story and journey. So these are things that are, backed by research and evidence and those kinds of things, but they're just kind of just quick tips on just how we can just find a way or find a better way to just make sure we're just taking care of ourselves so that we're at our best place to be there for others. And it's also, just for others. I mean, it's for all of us. And how do we just kind of take care of ourselves? So, we've covered, like you said, we've kind of stretched it out. You and I will kind of feed off of one another and we start talking about things. And so the 9 to know has kind of been in 3 different episodes, at least in part, like you said. But here we are. We're going to round it out. We have 8 and 9 to finish it out today.
Absolutely. And again, up on the screen, for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see all of them, 1 through 7. Mike, do you just want to run down the headlines of the first 7 again before we get into 8 and 9 here?
Yeah, I'll just do that. I'll do that quickly. That's a great idea to do that. So, the first one is basically just being able to kind of just press pause, take a moment for yourself, just to be able to kind of just take a moment, breathe, just be in that moment. Second one is, doing something different than you do every day in your professional life, varying it up, making sure you find something that re-energizes you. Number 3 is making sure you start with the bare basics, and that's going to be rest and sleep and making sure you get your fluids and hydration, and then also making sure that you take care of those kinds of things. And the type of nutrition, the type of fuel you put in your body also makes a difference. Number 4, staying connected, making sure that you stay connected. Sometimes that's difficult, as we know, with the social distancing and where COVID-19 is right now, and just trying to do our part to keep each other safe, keep ourselves safe. But we still need to make sure we stay connected. And that can be done by sometimes just picking up the phone, or it's a quick text, or it's just doing like what we're doing right now, Daryl. We're talking, through Zoom or some other type of connection, video wise. Then we're going to move into number 5, and that's making sure that we find ways to stay active, meaning that we just got to we got to move. We got to do something. When I use the E word, the exercise word, people are like, well, hold on a second, but it is just movement. So anything you can do, sometimes standing up, stretching, taking a few steps. If you're able to kind of go up and down your steps at home, if you have them, then being able to do that a couple, maybe extra times during the day. With the pandemic, I think a lot of us have been more sedentary or just not moving as much. We've just been kind of more still, not as active. So the more we move, that's been shown to just be, it leads to a healthier, longer life. So it's not just about trying to live longer, it's live longer, healthier, in a healthy way. Making sure that we're checking in with each other is important. And so that one is, where are we at, Daryl? I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's I lost count, Daryl.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe that was 6.
I think, yeah. So that's just, and then the other one is you're making sure it's connected to staying connected, and that's checking in with one another. And then also making sure we hold on to humor. So that brings us up to where we are now to round out 8 and 9. I believe is where we are right now.
Absolutely, and these are important. So I've been looking forward to these. Number 8, Mike, on our 9 to know. What do we have?
Okay, so that one is a big one because we are surrounded by news and information at just a quick touch of a button or a touch of a screen. So we're flooded by all kinds of different information. And so sometimes, I've been talking to people recently, and it's been like, what I'm hearing is people say, gosh, I don't even know what to believe right now. I don't know what with everything going on. And it's not just the pandemic and the crisis of COVID-19. It's the social unrest and civil unrest due to our race relations throughout our country right now. It's the economy. It's the devastation of the pandemic on the economy. The election, even though that has where we're sitting at today, that has come and gone in terms of the election. We talked a little bit about that, I think, even the last time, but it's still ongoing, and so that uncertainty surrounds that as well. So there's the political, just kind of the mood and just where things are politically right now. It's difficult and challenging. So all of that put together, we have access to that information. So this number 8 is limit and take breaks from media, social media, and news. Because if people will say to me, but I want to stay informed. I got to stay informed, and I want you to stay informed. But I also want you to kind of keep your peace of mind that if you stay too informed and too connected, it creates even more stress and anxiety. So it's stay informed with trusted sources of information, but limit your exposure to that. Limit how much time you're staying informed and connected. Take breaks, separate, step away from the computer, step away from the phone, put down the devices, and step away. So limit and take breaks. The other one is just the last one, 9, is just reaching out for support. And sometimes, we've talked about, that's how we kicked things off in our first episode. You were, I think, just so genuine and real, Daryl, and sharing your story of just kind of how you came to say, what, I need to find some help and support along the way so I can get out of where I am. And you've done that, and you've shared that. We continue to talk about those kinds of things now and how important that is. And it's really about, taking care of these things, taking care of ourselves in these ways, including our own, we want good mental health. So we want to be able to have, good mental health. Reaching out for support sometimes along the way is really just a sign of strength, not weakness. And so when we do that, we give ourselves a chance to just continue to get better instead of just trying to get by.
Yeah, it's perfect.
That's it. Yeah. And we got to the 9.
With a couple rain delays in between, we completed that victory.
Yes.
But no, those are 2 that I think are really important. And, the last one, reaching out, that's, one of the things that's gotten me through. It's how I've made some of my closest friends, identifying with others that have been through this thing and connecting with them. And to me, that's, one of my favorite things to do. Make sure they're doing all right and keep that level of connection and support. And then the social media thing, that was, I go back to early March, and I was just starting to finally feel better coming out of kind of my long several month bout with this illness that started last summer, just starting to feel better. And then COVID comes along. And this was a big topic that I had with with my therapist, Katie, through WellSpan over the course of multiple sessions was, what am I going to do about handling the constant news feed that comes my way? And initially it was a very kind of destructive consumption of the news every day for me, because my biggest, now this is going to sound bad. I mean, obviously I was concerned with people getting sick and everything, but as it pertained to my life and my job, right, the thing that I was most concerned about was us not having a baseball season. And of course we didn't, but what I was doing every night was watching the news, thumbing through Twitter, looking for positive signs like, oh, maybe there's some evidence that we'll be able to, start playing come May or June or something. And it was just a vicious cycle with not nearly enough good information to make me feel better. So here I am constantly going through Twitter or whatever, looking for that stuff. It's not there, getting more and more down about it, stressed about it. And like you said, you've got to be so careful with so much of the news now, because it seems like everybody's got some sort of agenda one way or the other. There's always opinion and speculation attached to, it seems like, everything. And you can get drawn into that, and you can get drawn into, stressing about things that haven't happened yet, doomsday type scenarios. It was a poisonous thing for me to be, so consumed with that stuff for so long. So we literally, in my therapy sessions, talked about unfollowing certain accounts, putting the phone down, doing something else, staying off of it. And I was happy to report to her that I was having success with that. And the more I stayed away from it, the better I felt. And eventually I just had to step back and accept where we were in 2020. But I think if I would have kept with that, news cycle, and we're going to talk about anxiety a lot in the upcoming couple of episodes.
Right.
That definitely preys on those symptoms as well. The worry and the constant noise that you're trying to process and comprehend. So had I not turned off Twitter and pushed it away for a while, it would have been, I think, a far more difficult summer for me than it even was.
Yeah, it's amazing, I think, and I appreciate, again, Daryl, you sharing that, because I think you're not alone with that. I mean, there are times, in what I do every day with my team and being, available to offer support in different ways to not only our fellow team members at WellSpan, but our community at large, those that we serve and support through our EAP, but, our employer services kind of division and way we do it, called Well at Work, for our employer community, but just our fellow neighbors within the community at large. It so very connected. So I, in terms of just, connected to information, news, updates, what's going on in our own health system in terms of, the pandemic, those kinds of things, our response to that, the processes. And that's important to make sure we have that clear communication, and it's always changing, but it's also, the way that I'm connected, through emails and getting, connected, and just trying to people reaching out and, phone and contact that way. By the end of the time where I shut things down for the evening, and that's been difficult. And I got to tell you, working from home, so virtually since March, it is very easy. When I used to leave the office, I could actually then, I had a supervisor one time when I was in my internship, and she said, what, when I leave, when I go home, there's this sign on the highway, and I use that sign every day. When I hit that sign, that's when my day ends. I shut my work off when I hit that sign, that billboard. And I used to remember that. I'm like, okay, that's great. Except right now, I don't have that billboard. I don't have that marker on the highway. So there are times that it's easy to walk into this space that I have for my work and get on my computer and respond to a couple emails, which often don't stop at a couple emails. And then I can feel that pull. I'm pulled in that. And it creates sometimes stress that I'm not even aware of. And people will say, well, what do you mean you're not aware of that? You're the psychologist. You should know these kinds of things. And you're right. I share that with other people. I share it all the time. Make sure that you put those boundaries in place. Make sure you step away. Make sure you don't go back into that space and hit on your computer, or you never turn off the computer and you just jump right back on there, enter your password, and you're right in again. It has that. And there's science behind that, kind of the brain and the physiology, and just being kind of how you get pulled into things like that with the digital technology, whether that's social media, whether that's jumping on kind of whatever the news programs are, or email sometimes, and so it's whatever that is, there is a connection. There needs to be a healthy balance with that. And so there are times, even during this pandemic, these last 8 months or so, there are times I've lost sight of that. And I feel that personally, because there are days that when I talk about my fuel levels, when I ask people, so how are you doing? Where are you at in your full fuel tanks, today, because today is different than maybe yesterday. And that's normal and true, but it's normal and true for all of us. So yesterday I had a day where my fuel tanks were lower, much lower than they are today, but that's just part of the ebb and flow. But there are things that we can do to make sure that we are mindful of that. And one of those things of the 9 to know was making sure that we step away and take those breaks. You highlighted that when you were working with Katie. And it may seem like a small common sense. Everyone would say, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I can do that. But actually doing it and staying the course sometimes can be very challenging.
Yes, absolutely. And don't you think, Mike, that again, the 9 to know was constructed with COVID in mind, but
Right.
even removing that from this year, don't you think that nowadays we walk in like a bigger minefield of potential pitfalls with depression and anxiety than ever before, just with everything going on? I mean, you're constantly connected to stuff. It finds you. You've got push notifications on your phone, all sort. I mean, there's just so much stimulation. That's, again, anxiety is kind of our next couple of episodes, but I just think that even without COVID, I mean, there's more potential traps that you can fall into now than maybe ever before in the history of society.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on. And that's interesting. I mean, the words you use there with traps, because I think that they absolutely can be that. So, if we're not careful, again, you hear the saying, all good things in moderation. Or too much is maybe not always the best, in terms of just kind of how much we're connected to, for example, these potential traps. Because, I think there's a huge positive to all that we're talking about, making sure we stay informed, making sure we stay connected. Social media, there can be absolutely some really positive and great things from these. But if we're not careful, we don't strike that balance, we can kind of lose our direction. And if we're not careful, it actually creates more stress and sometimes even more anxiety. And that's exactly what you're talking about. We'll touch more on that when we get further along, but I think that's huge. And sometimes it's the smallest little tweak that we do that can make the biggest difference for ourselves and how we care for ourselves. That 9 to know really is not, I think even in the title it's really about the pandemic, yes, but it's really beyond that. I mean, these things are just things we can apply every day, not just during a pandemic.